Americans out. But it's worth pointing out that in this 2020 agreement, we released 5,000 Taliban fighters that American troops put in jail for doing bad things, right? Terrorists, by any stretch or means of the imagination, we released them from jail. They're now fighting against us and, quote unquote, guarding the airports and guarding American troops. And I think it's also important to realize that the Pentagon, as well as the State Department, as well as our intelligence agencies, have to be very strategic about the next move that we make when it comes to retaliating against ISIS-K. Why? Because we have military troops on the ground. And we want to be sure that we don't lose. We've already lost 13 military troops. I don't want to lose another one because we made a faulty decision. So we've got to get everybody we can get out as fast as we can. And with that being said, this White House has gotten over 100,000 people out in less than 10 days.
Those people are not Americans for the majority of them, by the way.
The vast majority.
Yeah, vast majority.
But it's also worth pointing out that there has been warnings over and over and over
so it's
again
their fault.
given out. No, I'm not saying it's their fault. I'm saying there's been warnings given over and over again to Americans saying you've got to get out because the situation, at some point in time, we are leaving.
Oh, so that's interesting, though. So if there were warnings for months that they had to get out ASAP, and the embassy couldn't help them get out ASAP, then why was Joe Biden telling the American people everything's fine?
I'm not denying that Joe Biden screwed this up.
The Afghan army is going to be great, and the Taliban wasn't going to quickly take over. Can't have both things, Richard.
Shame on this government. Shame on this government because the messaging has been, you guys, we told you it was really dangerous. Anyone who's in Afghanistan, they know how dangerous it is, all right? They've known that for some time. You don't try and get out 100,000 or 500,000 people in 2 weeks. That is completely irresponsible. It is totally untenable. And then you have the Secretary of State blaming people. He's blaming Americans. And then you have the administration saying, well, you know what? Every once in a while, we leave something behind. We're talking about this before the show. Like, yeah, you know, when I moved from one house to another, there was a broken lamp, so I didn't pack it in the U-Haul. That you cannot do that with American lives. I don't trust this government. I don't think they're listening to the people that they should. I think they are abandoning and stranding people who are brave and deserve to be saved, and they're not. I don't think they have a strategy. They don't have any plans. They don't know what they're doing. And this, you know, if this is not the undoing of this presidency, I don't want to see how bad it gets.
And Hemmer had the agreement on set yesterday, Gutfeld. It was conditions-based.
Yeah.
Biden could have got out of it. Trump said he could have moved it. It was all about meeting those conditions. He wasn't locked in.
That's why the comparison doesn't work, because that was actually had conditions that are now missing. I'm not calling for an impeachment at all, but I love how the media is already scolding people for bringing up impeachment. In fact, saying that, how dare you cheapen the process. This is from the same people who screamed impeachment for 4 years, who impeached Trump over a phone call. You tell me that this is less egregious than a phone call? Dead Americans? That's crazy. But the problem why I'm not for impeachment, there's no one to replace him. Kamala, give me a break. There'd be a crisis dinner every night, crisis meals every day. But what does this tell you in a bigger picture? Is that this pitiful woke embrace by the Democrats have destroyed their party. You can't lead a country if you believe the country is racist, is guilty of the original sin of racism. You can't lead a country if you abdicate the responsibilities of the survival of a government, which is immigration and law enforcement. It's all connected. The abdication of responsibility during the riots, the denigration of the police, the conflation of the immigration process to racism leads to a feeble foreign policy in which only a feeble response is the right one, because you do not have the moral authority to actually exercise the right choices. The Democrats, however, I mean, this is where I'm going to defend Joe Biden. We
got to go to commercial break. I'm sorry.
But I think you'll like my defense.
Okay.
This is on the Democrats and the media, not Joe Biden. Joe Biden was chosen by them to beat Trump, and they knew his state. They knew he couldn't lead, but they assumed win first, worry about whether he can lead later. So now they're left holding the bag. You can't yell at Joe. You got him in there, right? So they wanted Joe to win, not govern. And now he has to govern, and he can't. That's where we are. That's why we're all scared. We're going like, okay, this was all this political thing, hiding the Hunter Biden laptop story, the entire cabal of all these institutions working to get him elected, and then lying about this consensus, which is, again, is ridiculous. But anyway, that's my defense of Joe Biden. I think he'd be pleased with it.
Well, you can tell the media is guilty. You can see it written all over their face.
Mm-hmm. Are you talking about your own face?
Don't talk about my face, Richard.
I'm talking. I was used to.
Don't you dare.
You see,
very sensitive topic right now.
Yes.
Coming up, why Biden's botched withdrawal just made it much more likely that American troops are going to have to return to Afghanistan.
Okay, everyone. Our mission is to provide complete balanced nutrition for strength and energy.
Ensure with 27 vitamins and minerals. Now introducing Ensure Complete with 30 grams of protein.
Subway has so much new, it didn't fit in that last ad. Like the new Artisan Italian and Hearty multigrain bread. It's to eat fresh, refresh at Subway. It's so much new, there's no time for Serena.
Wait, what?
Sorry, we don't even have time to say they were created by world-class bakers. Oh, guess we did.
Seriously?
My bad.
So ashamed I overpaid for this used car. I've decided to go undercover. Guess I picked the wrong used car site.
Remember, if you don't see me, you're not seeing the most accurate price. Shop at Carfax. You won't have to overpay on a used car again.
Hey, Bob.
Oh, my. Hey, Beth. How we feeling?
Good.
Yep.
Moving.
Shop millions of great deals, all with a free Carfax report. Only at the all-new Carfax.com.
People everywhere living with type 2 diabetes are waking up to what's possible with Rybelsus. Rybelsus works differently than any other diabetes pill to lower blood sugar in all 3 of these ways. Increases insulin when you need it, decreases sugar, and slows food. The majority of people taking Rybelsus lowered their blood sugar and reached an A1C of less than 7. People taking Rybelsus lost up to 8 pounds. Rybelsus isn't for people with type 1 diabetes. Don't take Rybelsus if you or your family ever had medullary thyroid cancer, or have multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2, or if allergic to it. Stop Rybelsus and get medical help right away if you get a lump or swelling in your neck, severe stomach pain, or an allergic reaction. Serious side effects may include pancreatitis. Tell your provider about vision problems or changes. Taking Rybelsus with a sulfonylurea or insulin increases low blood sugar risk. Side effects like nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea may lead to dehydration, which may worsen kidney problems. Wake up to what's possible with Rybelsus. You may pay as little as $10 per prescription. Ask your healthcare provider about Rybelsus today.
As someone who resembles someone else, I appreciate that Liberty Mutual knows everyone's unique. That's why they customize your car insurance, so you only pay for what you need. I mean, just because you look like someone else doesn't mean you eat off the floor, or yell at the vacuum, or need flea medication. Oh yeah, that's the spot. Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Death and destruction at Kabul airport as the president orders a complete retreat. After August 31st, Americans will be left behind enemy lines. Tonight on Hannity.
My reputation was trashed online. I felt completely helpless. My entire career and business were in jeopardy. I called Reputation Defender.
Take control of your online reputation. Get your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com. Find out your online reputation today and let the experts help you repair it.
They were able to restore my good name.
Visit reputationdefender.com or call 1-877-866-8555.
You would think a pan is a pan until Made In came along, and I went, wow, these things are something better.
Those are the pans that we use at Alinea, at one of the best restaurants in the world.
It's built for a home cook like me, but fit for Alinea like him.
Guys, as we get older, we all lose testosterone. The Force Factor's Test X180 works to boost it back, build muscle, increase energy, fuel desire, and improve performance. Rush to Walmart for Test X180, the #1 fastest growing testosterone brand in America.
Welcome back. President Biden standing by his decision to withdraw all troops from Afghanistan in just 4 days from now. But how long will that last? Former President Obama's defense secretary sounding the alarm. He says the U.S. military will inevitably be forced to go back in. Watch.
The bottom line is our work is not done. We're going to have to go back in to get ISIS. We're probably going to have to go back in when al-Qaeda resurrects itself, as they will with this Taliban. They gave safe haven to al-Qaeda before. They'll probably do it again. I understand that we're trying to get our troops out of there, but the bottom line is we can leave a battlefield, but we can't leave the war on terrorism, which still is a threat to our security.
Do you distrust Lefty Hawks as much as I do?
Something tells me you think he wants to go back in, Kennedy.
Yeah, he seemed a little too excited about that prospect.
Yeah, a lot of people want to go back, but I don't think we will. How are you going to go back when we don't have any basing rights? Pakistan said we can't base there. The stands, Tajikistan, all those former satellites, they won't let us go back. Putin said, no, Joe, won't let you base there. So I don't know how we're getting back there. The only way we go back in any significant way is if you're on the homeland. That's the only way we're going back big. And if we go back big, we aren't nation building. We learned that lesson. So we're going to get out of Afghanistan. We're going to get out of Iraq, out of Syria, and we're going to sit. The military is going to rest. And we're going to be pretty locked and loaded. So the next enemy that tries to mess with the United States, we are going to come out so strong and smash these idiots like a monster. So think twice before you do that. Right now, the Taliban, something tells me they don't want the United States back in their country. They want to go back to where it was in the 90s. They had Sharia law. They stole all the foreign aid. They exported poppy.
Without Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, they did their thing, right? We kicked their butts for 20 years. They need a break, okay? It's a nasty neighborhood. Kind of reminds me of Philly, where I grew up. Surrounded by China. What's so funny, Greg? China, Iran, Pakistan. Here's what I hope. I think it's China's turn to get sucked into that
vortex.
Yeah. I mean, every empire does, right? Every single empire. It's China's turn. I bet China comes in hot after we leave, and they wind up there for 30 years getting killed. I can see it happening. It happens to every empire.
Yeah, they're like, we want your minerals. And Afghanistan's like, we're so high on opium, we don't care right now. And then they're going to be like, wait a second, those are really valuable. We want them back. Richard, are you war weary, or do you share the former defense secretary and CIA director's enthusiasm?
Oh, I share nothing with Leon Panetta, especially not this opinion. I don't think going back is an option. And I do, listen, I think to some extent Jesse's right. The Taliban has every interest in making sure that nobody invades them again, right? They want to stay in power to the point where what we saw them do today was they went to the Turkish government. They're like, hey, we don't know how to run an airport. Can you help us out? Can you run our airport? Right? Literally, they asked the president of Turkey to can you run our airport? Because they don't know how to do that, right? And they want some sort of world legitimacy. They have 2 embassies currently open, the embassy of China and the embassy of Russia, go figure. And they're like, listen, we want to be legitimate so that we don't get invaded again. So I think that's thing number one. And I think thing number two, anybody out there thinks that we have to go back in. I think the American public is adamantly against that. Like, this withdrawal made it very clear that Americans are like, yeah, we don't want to go back in, and we don't want to see these horrifying pictures on our screens ever again. With that being said, I think Biden has to own the consequences of his decisions, which are playing out in front of our eyes. But his critics should also own...
I don't think he knows what he wants to do. I don't think he knows if he wants to stay out and withdraw completely or somehow ramp things back up.
Well, touche, but I think his critics should also own the fact that the real alternative would have been a major escalation of war, which most Americans oppose. If we were to stay beyond the preconditions that the Trump administration had laid out in the February 2020 deal, including in those 2020 negotiations that Mike Pompeo did, they basically asked that those conditions say that the Taliban will not allow fertile territory for ISIS-K or al-Qaeda to regrow. We know that both of those things are happening, but those agreements say very carefully they're not supposed to do that. So I don't see a world in which we can go back to war, but I understand that if anybody who says that we need to be in there understands that once we go back in or once we stay in, it could escalate to a full-blown war, which I don't think Americans want.
It's like marrying your ex, Katie.
That is true. So I want to make sure we're not conflating two things. So the Taliban is different than ISIS-K. President Biden is talking about going after ISIS-K, which they say is responsible for the suicide attack yesterday. I think a lot of people aren't convinced, including the Pentagon today, walking back that the Taliban had nothing thing to do with them getting to the front of the gates. Now, that's one thing. They have a much smaller footprint. The Taliban did let thousands of them out of prison when they went to Bagram and took it over. So that's one issue, and that's what we're talking about retaliating against now. The Taliban is basically on the verge of being recognized as an international player. They're about to be recognized as a government. Essentially, the State Department's basically calling them our Afghan partners. You have a bunch of generals saying that. They have 600,000 rifles that are ours. They have thousands of vehicles that are ours. And for us to go back and take on the Taliban would require another full-scale war. It's not like going in with special forces and retaking all of this stuff. I mean,
But that's what Panetta is saying.
Right.
You know, he's saying that there are 3 baskets of deplorables in Afghanistan right now.
But I don't think that's going to happen.
Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, and he's saying we're going to have to go back in. It's like when you go to a surgeon and they amputate the wrong arm, and they're like, now we have to amputate the other arm.
No, hate it when that happens. What am I going to talk about, Jesse?
The media.
No. What theory am I going to bring up?
Prison of two ideas.
The prison of two ideas.
This is when people are led to believe they only have 2 options. And this is often done by the media because they can only handle 2 options. So the options here are either a forever war or we must leave now. All right? We must have this airport or this embassy, but we cannot have both. This prison of 2 ideas tricks you into not hearing other options, that are, in fact, are endless. We are the greatest military in the history of the world. I have every confidence that we can find a nice little middle ground between a forever war and leaving like a Walgreens shoplifter. What it is, no interest in going back in, but it's what I call terror control. Every few months, 6 months, once a year, you go in and you spray for bugs. And when I mean bugs, I mean terrorists. And that's all we have. We have the best soldiers, the best operators. We have the best weapons. We got to go in, and we're like exterminators. We exterminate the terrorists. It's not a forever war. But we can't get into this either or crap. We're going to lose.
But isn't that what they offered before, to leave a small force to do exactly that? And now here we are. So
now we're going to have a much bigger Panetta force. It's awful. All right, coming up, hunting down the bloodthirsty terrorists who did this, what we know about ISIS-K as they prepare another attack. That's next on The 5.
This is why you want Farmers Claim Forgiveness.
Your home premium won't go up just because of this.
Wow, that's something.
You get a whole lot of something with Farmers Policy Perks.
Get a quote today.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
The COVID-19 vaccines are safe and effective. And while Walgreens has safely administered over 25 million free COVID-19 vaccines, we can't stop there, because this is still our shot.
My name is Kevin Trimble, retired Army specialist. September 18th, 2011, we were clearing a village of IEDs, and we found one that was buried in a wall. And before we got it out, before we really, found all the parts, it was command detonated from a little ways away, and it killed a friend of mine and took away both my legs and my left arm.
There are over 1,000 families that need our help. Talented Towers is honoring those heroes that risked their lives by providing them with mortgage-free homes.
My previous home was a fairly small apartment, about 780 square feet, so smaller than this room. And it was functional, but far from optimal. Now, the stove is going to be useful because when you're dealing with, hot pots and pans and cooking, which I really enjoy. I've been doing it for a little while. Getting it at a height where you can actually manage everything, not like reaching over a counter, is just safer, is the biggest part. Receiving this house on Veterans Day it's impactful because it's a day to honor veterans, and it's not just about me. It also is sort of an homage to the people that I lost or also got injured with me in Afghanistan.
I'm Frank Silla, chairman of the Stephen Silla Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Our foundation is committed to delivering mortgage-free homes, and we're building smart homes for our country's most catastrophically injured service members. But we need your help. We're asking all Americans to donate $11 a month so we can keep our promise to these great heroes and their families left behind.
I'd like to ask you to contribute $11 a month to support their efforts. Please visit TunnelToTowers.org.
Get new floors during Empire Today's gigantic 75% off sale. That's carpet, hardwood, vinyl, and laminate. 75% off. Empire makes getting beautiful new floors easy. See samples in your home. Get a free estimate and have your floors professionally installed. Update your floors with Empire and get 75% off carpet, hardwood, vinyl, and laminate. Schedule now.
800-588-2300 Empire. Here's my new dress. What's that? Oh, Damp Rid.
Damp Rid? Damp Rid. It gets rid of musty odors.
How? Well, Damp Rid attracts and traps excess moisture,
eliminating the source of musty odors.
Mustiness, gone.
Damp Rid.
What do we want for dinner?
Burgers! I want a sugar cookie! I want a bucket of chicken! I want...
It's the easiest because it's the cheesiest. Kraft, for the win-win. When America faces tough challenges, we find strength from within. The choice is clear. Solutions are made in America with America's natural gas and oil.
When the president says, "We will hunt you down and make you pay," what does that look like? Is he going to order a mission to kill the people responsible, or would he be satisfied if they are captured and brought to trial?
I think he made clear yesterday that he does not want them to live on the earth anymore.
The White House makes it clear they will hunt down ISIS-K, the terrorist group claiming responsibility for yesterday's brutal attack that killed 13 U.S. service members and nearly 200 Afghans. President Biden being warned today just to expect another terrorist attack by the group. For more, let's go to Jennifer Griffin at the Pentagon. Jennifer, how are you?
Good evening, Richard. Tonight, thousands of American troops are on edge at the Kabul airport as they evacuate thousands of Afghans waiting on the tarmac. Approximately 5,000 were there today, according to the Pentagon. New video of the attack shows the devastation outside Abbey Gate. One suicide bomber struck, then gunmen opened fire. The Pentagon has blamed an offshoot of the Taliban called ISIS-K, but avoided pinning blame on the Taliban, which it still needs to provide airport security. How many ISIS-K prisoners were left at Bagram and are believed to have been released from the prison there? And why weren't they removed before the U.S. pulled out to someplace like Gitmo?
Well, I don't know the exact number. Clearly, it's in the thousands.
U.S. officials say reports that they shared lists of Americans and Afghan allies with the Taliban are incorrect, adding that in some cases to get these Afghans and Americans through a checkpoint, they provided the information, and for the most part, the Taliban have been letting those people pass. 12,500 people were evacuated yesterday on 35 military flights, even after the suicide bombing attack that killed 13 Americans and wounded 20 other American troops. Those troops were medevaced to Germany. Richard?
Thanks, Jennifer. We're going to go around the table, and I'll start. So today in the White House press briefing, Jen Psaki indicated the U.S. government had leverage with the Taliban. What does that leverage look like from the Pentagon's point of view?
Well, I think the Pentagon and State Department are working hand in hand, and the leverage that they believe they had. And remember, Bill Burns of the CIA met with the Taliban leader Mullah Baradar on Monday and likely would have delivered a stern message, perhaps tried to feel out what the Taliban's intents were, how they could work together. And also, he needed to deliver a message that the security around the airport was going to be their responsibility, and that if they did allow bombers through, like the one that we saw attack yesterday, that they would be held accountable. So there have been diplomatic messages sent. There has been constant contact, but from Admiral Vaisley, who's in charge of the operation, overseeing the operation at the airport. But in essence, I think what they're going to find and what we've been hearing is that the Taliban want to set up a government. Now, does the Taliban control all of their fighters? Are some of those fighters going to leave the Taliban when they have to become a normal so-called government, and they'll then join ISIS-K? What you find in countries like this, where there are these offshoots and various terror groups competing for recruits, is that the more extreme ones are not going to want to be in government. So the U.S. is hoping to use that leverage so they can keep the airport open and still get some of these SIVs and other Americans and Afghan evacuees out after August 31st.
Kennedy?
Jennifer, first of all, great reporting. I know this is your wheelhouse and you work on this throughout the year 365, but your reporting on this has really been phenomenal and straightforward. So thank you for that, number one.
Thank you.
Number two, I want you to talk a little bit more about the relationship between ISIS-K and the Taliban, because right now it seems like the administration is trying to make a really clear difference between the two groups. But it seems like if the Taliban were in charge of security, they shouldn't have let those people through in that horrific attack.
Well, remember, Kabul is not exactly Switzerland. So when people got through those checkpoints, these are not TSA checkpoints. This is a chaotic street scenes where people can get through. It's not a tight cordon around the airport. So in terms of the relationship between the Taliban and ISIS-K, it's very complicated. On the one hand, they are rivals. ISIS-K doesn't think the Taliban are extreme enough. But on the other hand, they certainly would work together with a common goal to embarrassing the Americans and striking Americans. The Taliban have not exactly changed in that sense. Right now, again, the relationship is going to be evolving. I think you're going to see some Taliban members leave the Taliban and join ISIS-K. Certainly what we learned today and what was so fascinating in the briefing this morning when I asked John Kirby about how many ISIS-K prisoners had been released from Bagram, which was a prison that the U.S. basically controlled until they left Bagram Air Base and left it in the hands of the Afghan National Army. But I was surprised by the numbers. He said that there were thousands of ISIS-K in that prison and another prison. That is a huge shot of recruits into ISIS-K. And again, we don't talk. I noticed that the administration is intentionally not mentioning al-Qaeda because it would be somewhat embarrassing, I think, because President Biden had mentioned that early on after this operation began that there were very few al-Qaeda left 20 years later after 9/11 in Afghanistan. That's not true. Based on intelligence reports and UN figures that were published in July. But you notice that the State Department and Pentagon don't want to talk about al-Qaeda. They want to talk about ISIS-K. You're really talking about shades without a difference between these three groups.
Mm-hmm. Katie?
Jennifer, Katie Pavlich here. It seems like we have a typical enemy of my enemy is my friend situation going on between the United States, the Taliban, and ISIS-K. My question is, after the United States leaves on August 31st, what are the chances of the Biden administration outsourcing essentially consequences for ISIS-K to the Taliban, who does have an interest once the United States leaves to maintain full power of the country and to kind of eliminate ISIS-K from the picture?
Well, I think that would make sense if you don't want to go back to that $800 million embassy in Kabul. But if the Taliban are going to remain the government, then the U.S. Will have to decide if they are going to reopen that embassy, if they're going to deal with the Taliban as a legitimate government. My guess is that what happens after the U.S. leaves is that Afghanistan's going to fall into a civil war. You already have in the Panjshir Valley a resistance rising of former Afghan National Army and resistance fighters. You're going to have competition and fighting between ISIS-K and the Taliban. So my guess is that it's not clear whether the Taliban are going to be able to hold on as the government of Afghanistan. And it's also not clear that the U.S. is going to recognize them.
Jesse?
So, Jen, Joe Biden made a lot of promises, which I support, rescuing stranded Americans and bringing these ISIS-K guys to justice. But if we don't have any basing in any of the countries neighboring Afghanistan, how do you pull off search and rescue or search and destroy missions with Rangers or SEAL teams? How do you insert those guys into that country?
Incredibly difficult to, you don't have drone bases nearby. They're flying out of the Gulf. You don't have any friendly basing, as you mentioned, Jesse. That's a real problem. But the really big problem is that their entire intelligence network has dried up. They would be probably dependent on the Taliban for intelligence to go after ISIS-K. That would be the only realistic scenario that I can see in the days after August 31st. Those partners that they relied on, those CIA networks, those have all been rolled up. The CIA's gotten many of their people out, and a lot of the partners that we haven't been able to evacuate, they're in hiding, and it's doubtful that those partners are going to be working with the U.S. anytime soon.
And Greg?
Yeah, just how are the injured Americans doing that are in Germany?
Well, we don't know for certain, but I suspect that they're very serious injuries. There were 20 Americans injured in the attack yesterday. I imagine they'll be brought on to Walter Reed when they're stabilized, or to BAMC out in Texas. But I would suspect from a bomb of the kind of power that we saw, given the number of casualties, that those are very serious injuries.
Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for your incredible reporting at the Pentagon. Coming up, some on the left are being called out for their poor reaction to yesterday's terrorist attack. We'll see what they're saying after the break.
Dr. Thompson does more than treat her patients.
And it works at my pharmacy?
She helps them find the best prices with GoodRx.
GoodRx. 1 sec.
Now that's caring.
Oh, perfect.
You're good with GoodRx.
Oh, that spin class was brutal. Well, you can try using the Buick's massaging seat. Ooh, yeah, that's nice. Can I use Apple CarPlay to put some music on? Sure, it's wireless. What's your Buick's Wi-Fi password? It's Buick Envision. That's a really tight spot. I used to hate parallel parking. Me too.
The all-new Buick Envision, built around you, all of you. Pay no interest for 72 months, plus current eligible Buick owners get $500 purchase allowance on 2021 Buick SUV models.
Riders, the lone wolves of the Great Highway. All they need is a bike and a full tank of gas. Their only friend, the open road.
I have friends.
Well, he may have friends, but he rides alone.
That's Jeremy right there. We're literally riding together.
He gets touchy when you talk about his lack of friends.
Can you help me out here?
No matter why you ride, Progressive has you covered with protection starting at $79 a year.
Well, I wouldn't need friends, to be fair. And still.
At T-Mobile for Business, unconventional thinking means we see things differently, so you can focus on what matters most. Whether it's ensuring food arrives as fresh as when it departs, being first on the scene when every second counts, or teaching biology without a lab, we are the leader in 5G, #1 in customer satisfaction, and a partner who includes 5G in every plan. So you get it all, without trade-offs. Unconventional thinking. It's better for business.
At Fox Nation, we've been dedicated to sharing the stories of those who have sacrificed for our great country. And in honor of that, we're giving all active military and veterans Fox Nation for free for an entire year. Get the shows that celebrate our country and the people that serve and protect it.
We need to remember that our freedom was not won through diplomacy. It was through good men and women shedding blood for our freedom.
It's good for us to take a pause to honor their service and honor their sacrifice.
You go into tattoo shops now and you still see a lot of patriotic and military style stuff.
Even though he's a dog, he was still my ranger buddy.
She's a constant reminder that there is light at the end of that tunnel.
If you're active military or a veteran, go to foxnation.com to get this limited time offer right now. Thank you for your service and your sacrifice, and enjoy your free year of Fox Nation. America is streaming.
The more experiences I have, the more beautiful life becomes. I believe we're never too old to set a new goal or dream a new dream. We all know that life is full of obstacles we must navigate. But if we're not at our best physically and mentally, it makes it even more challenging. Only you can do it, but there's nothing wrong with asking for a little help. That's why I take Relief Factor. If you suffer from aches and pains, Relief Factor can help like it did for me. Relief Factor is a 100% drug-free alternative created by doctors and backed by scientific research, specifically formulated to address your body's own pain and inflammation. You can really feel the difference. Relief Factor created the 3-week quick start for only $19.95. We're confident you'll feel the difference with your neck, hip, back, knee, elbow, or other type of joint pain you're experiencing. In fact, about 70% of customers go on to order more. Call 1-800-4RELIEF to order now or go to relieffactor.com to feel the difference.
Well, you'd think yesterday would have been a somber day for all Americans, but apparently not for the left. Liberals are being called out for their awful reactions to yesterday's harrowing events. In a since-deleted tweet about the bombing, MSNBC's Malcolm Nance said, quote, This ain't new. It's why we are leaving. Hashtag deal with it. And Liberal primetime host Chris Hayes tried to minimize yesterday's deaths by saying, quote, again, probably 1,000 people are going to die today from COVID. So, Greg, I set this up for you to talk about the media.
Yes, because I talk about it rarely. It's always gross about when people see a major event and they think, I've got to weigh in. I remember when Twitter started, I think that was an obvious kind of inclination. But now when you see it, it's like these people are really, really thirsty. They just it's like people posting, shirtless shots like Jesse does on Instagram. Nance did apologize.
I deleted those.
Oh yes, I photographed them before.
Them.
But so when somebody apologizes for it, I always say you should accept it. And Nance, he is a very thirsty dude. Mm-hmm. He's always looking for attention, and he got it. But at least he realized after he got called down on it. As for Vice, we didn't mention Vice. They published a tweet saying that the Marines are filled with neo-Nazis and whatnot. They took it down because of the timing, right? But that's not the problem. The problem is the story itself, which is false and it's garbage. And this is the reason why Vice is hemorrhaging money and had to lay off so many workers, is because essentially they become a woke zombie of Media Matters. It's like all their stuff comes from Media Matters and the Daily Beast, and they put it all together and they hire terrible writers. They don't pay them anything. And then this is what happens. You get this kind of crap. It's disgusting, despicable, but not surprising.
And Jesse, isn't this kind of a reflection of the culture war and the politics that get thrown into every situation? And the broader thing about Vice is that these are young men and women who voluntarily, no matter their background, many of them happen to be white, go into the Marine Corps and sacrifice their life for other people who work at Vice, for them to be able to do their jobs. And this is how they treat them. There's zero respect for what happened.
When people say dumb things during national tragedies, same thing goes through my mind every time. I'm glad it wasn't me.
Yes.
Because I have a code that I live by, Katie, and it's mostly about self-preservation. On the day that people die, I don't say anything controversial. I pretend it's a funeral. And I go in there and I act somber and I act solemn, and I'm controversial the next day. But on the day that the bodies are still warm, celebrity suicides, mass shootings, terrorist attacks, I don't try to draw attention to myself.
And that says a lot.
Yeah,
that says a lot. That's a lot of restraint. That's a lot of restraint.
You don't want to have a sentence that says, on the day that so and so many people died, blank said this. You don't want to be blank. And what's the common denominator for all of these comments? These people are trying to be either edgy or they're trying to be deep. Now, as Greg knows, you don't try to be deep. You're just deep, okay? If you try, you're not deep. And edginess is all about timing. You have to have good timing to be edgy. If you're not, look what happens.
Kennedy, any advice on that?
No, I think you're absolutely right about that. And I'm so sick of these hot takes.
Yeah.
It's like, and everyone is just in a race to put out these garbage hot takes without adding anything to the discussion. Because, of course, we can have philosophical discussions about what is our foreign policy? What should we be doing? To your point, we should not be nation building. Right. That is one of the most important lessons learned. But when you hear about the bravery and sacrifice and heroism of those Marines before that attack, when it's like it would bring tears to your eyes to hear what they were doing, facilitating the safe exit of people who are certainly going to die if they are left there. They know what they're up against. They know that they've got 3 terror groups and they've got giant bullseyes on them, and still they are helping the most vulnerable, and then they were slaughtered. And this is the garbage they put out. It's like, yeah, we do have a free press. And yes, you can say that stuff, but it's still, these things are insensitive and really, really stupid.
Richard, Dana would say you don't have to tweet everything that comes into your head.
I think that's absolutely right. These folks are wrong, absolutely wrong. I didn't agree with us going to Afghanistan. I didn't agree with us staying in Afghanistan. I agree with the withdrawal. I think Biden's team did a terrible job of getting us out there. But when it comes to our vets, when it comes to our Gold Star families, they deserve our gratitude. They deserve our praise. And when they are mourning, we should be mourning with them. Period, point blank, end of story.
Agreed. All right. The darkest day in Biden's presidency. How the White House, how do they move forward? We have that up next.
Subway has so much new it didn't fit in their last ad, like this new and improved steak and cheese, loaded with our new tender steak that's marinated and thicker sliced on our new artisan Italian bread. Man, you covered up the footlong. The Eat Fresh Refresh at Subway. It's too much new to fit in one commercial.
Look at this guy. He's really working hard. You know what he'll get? muscle pain. You know what he should get? Advil. Pain says you can't. Advil says you can.
Summer is a state of mind you can visit anytime. Savor your summer with Lincoln.
As someone who resembles someone else, I appreciate that Liberty Mutual knows everyone's unique. That's why they customize your car insurance, so you only pay for what you need. I mean, just because you look like someone else doesn't mean you eat off the floor, or yell at the vacuum, or need flea medication. Oh yeah, that's the spot. Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Death and devastation in Kabul.
This is the biggest disaster in modern military history.
2 congressmen and Afghanistan veterans weigh in on Life, Liberty, Levin.
Selling a home is expensive and stressful, so we set out to create a better home selling experience with a network of the most successful real estate agents in America that'll sell your home for as little as a 2% commission.
The icing on the cake with the Ideal Agent was that we saved $12,000 in commissions.
We would definitely use Ideal Agent again. The whole process was so positive for us.
Excellent, excellent service.
Getting right to the point, hiring Ideal Agent, I wish we would have done that sooner, and we would have saved 6 months of time and mortgage payments that would have probably never happened if we would have just gone with them first.
They were so stress-free, the whole process was amazing, and I would definitely recommend them.
We certainly recommend Ideal Agent now to all of our family, all of our friends. It's just a great experience.
We are not a discount brokerage. These are top local agents that'll get you the best results.
My reputation was trashed online. I felt completely helpless. My entire career and business were in jeopardy. I called Reputation Defender.
Take control of your online reputation. Get your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com. Find out your online reputation today and let the experts help you repair it.
They were able to restore my good name.
Visit reputationdefender.com or call 1-877-866-8555.
Tony here from creditrepair.com. Take it to the streets to talk about credit. What's a good credit score? Go.
600.
Maybe if you're trying to pay thousands extra in interest rates. Can your credit score impact your job?
Oh, I know this one. No.
Oh, no. Is credit repair expensive?
Isn't having bad credit expensive?
My man. Cut the confusion. Get started with a free credit evaluation at creditrepair.com.
Welcome back. So where does Joe Biden go from here? Yesterday's attack shows there are real consequences for Biden blundering his way through the presidency. Politico summed it up yesterday, saying it was, quote, the darkest day of Joe Biden's presidency. Kennedy, the upside of this is that its presidency is still young.
It's the only thing young about Joe Biden.
Yes. What do you think?
Well, first of all, you had the image of people clinging to the airplane and falling off. And then yesterday, the images that we couldn't show on TV, you almost can't watch them. They're so bad. So I can't imagine what happens to his presidency if it gets worse. This is so awful. And yes, Kamala Harris, in the words of Nikki Haley, would be 10 times worse.
Yeah, Jesse, the Democrats are kind of screwed. Either way, they don't have a Mike Pence in case something goes bad.
I don't see that happening.
No.
But the best case scenario for Joe is that no more terror attacks.
Yeah.
He gets everybody out and he stages daring rescue missions to bring back stranded Americans. We'd all appreciate that. Worst case scenario, another casualty we sustain at the airport. Stranded Americans that do phoners on cable TV throughout the fall. Civil war, as we saw, they bring back Sharia law atrocities on tape that go feed out all over the world. And then, God forbid, an asylum seeker comes back and blows something up in the homeland. All of that is possible right now. But Biden's going to pivot back to COVID real soon when school gets back into session. He's going to start hitting DeSantis, and he's going to get his infrastructure thing done. So he's going to try to turn the page here. Yeah.
The other thing that you didn't mention is hostages, which is that thing that really, really worries me because, Richard, what would you, if you were in the White House, what would you suggest as advice to President Biden?
Oh, I think the more information you give the American people, the better. I was having a conversation with the producers today, and they were saying, all you're seeing is briefings. And I'm like, and this is the right thing at this point. He mangled us getting out, and now what the American people now need more than ever is reassurance. When the State Department's briefing, when the Pentagon's briefing twice, when you see the president every day or every other day briefing the American people, they might not have all the information, but they have some information. And that reassures the American people that we're trying to get ahead of it. We made a mistake at the beginning, and we're working our way to try to fix it. While not perfect, we're getting there. Yeah. And I think that's what they're trying to do now, which is a good step in the right direction.
I think, Katie, one of the problems with Joe Biden is that he's clinging to the sunk cost of the bad decision. He can't reverse it.
He can't reverse this. And what has happened over the past 2 weeks, which culminated into a catastrophe yesterday, is that this is not an isolated event that's just going to go away, because this is not just about Afghanistan. This is now about Islamic terror recruitment. This is about now the question of whether President Joe Biden can protect the United States of America from Islamic terrorism. This is now, our enemies are watching this. Some of the same people who are on the team who were in charge of the Afghanistan pullout are now in charge of negotiating the Iran nuclear agreement. China is also building up their nuclear arsenal, and Russia is still launching cyber attacks on our critical infrastructure, which Joe Biden gave him a list, much like we apparently gave a list to the Taliban with all of our interpreters and Americans who are still stranded in the country. So this is not just about Afghanistan and leaving Afghanistan. This is a broader problem of having no deterrence and our enemies understanding that Joe Biden is incredibly weak. And based on how he handled this and hanging on to the sunk costs, is he really going to be able to stand up to other countries that have things like ballistic missiles and nuclear weapons?
So funny. It's a good point. He has a thing for lists. Gives a list to the Taliban. He's got a list.
He's like, don't bomb these things. Don't attack these things. These
and he's got
terrible.
a list of the reporters that are given to him. Everybody's given him a